Jazzcast Pros.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Healing Her Within. Today, we are going to be talking about when you know you are on the right path of a decision that you have made or something that you are aspiring to accomplish. How do you know that you are on the right track? And what gives you the motivation? What has given me the motivation to not give up when that inner critic, when that dialogue internally starts to make us question ourselves? Welcome to Healing Her Within, where inner healing meets unstoppable power. This podcast is for women ready to stop shrinking, heal their inner child, and rise into their true selves. I'm your host, Maryann Rivera, and here we have real conversations about healing, growth, and reclaiming your voice. You were never broken, you were becoming. So take a breath, settle in, and let's begin from the inside out. So, this conversation today was prompted by a friend of mine that she listens to my podcast. So I asked her, I'm like, hey, you've been listening to the podcast for quite some time. Is there a particular topic that you would like for me to talk about? Something that, you've been wondering about, that you're curious about, that you would like for me to talk about? And of course she said yes. So that's why we're having this conversation today. So this individual, which I'm not going to say to protect her, privacy, she knows who she is. She also dropped out of high school like I did. And not many people know that she is actually working on her GED. Unlike me, I got my GED shortly after I dropped out of high school when I was in the juvenile delinquent system. So let's start there. So I have shared before and I have written in, books and things like that, that I dropped out of high school when I was 16 years old. It was actually right on my 16th birthday that I dropped out from high school. I was on the ninth grade. And if for y'all nosy folks that are doing the math, yes, I was 16 in the ninth grade because I failed, because I was never in school, which led to me dropping out. So I dropped out of high school in the ninth grade for the second time. And it was a decision that I made not knowing hindsight what I know today, obviously. Not having positive role models in my life, not having somebody that can talk to me and say, girl, what is you doing? Somebody to pour into me, somebody that I could, look up to and talk to them about the things that were going on in my mind. Because at the age of 16, I was going through some stuff. I was a hot mess. I was a hot mess mentally, emotionally, physically. And I decided to drop out of high school. And like I said, I have failed the ninth grade. And not because I was dumb, because I was far from the truth. I was just never in school. The teachers seemed not to really care. It seemed like they were just there to collect the paycheck, that they were there to just collect enough time to, add years to their pension and things like that. So I didn't really have anybody to guide me. So I dropped out of high school and I was already in the juvenile delinquent system. So dropping out of high school led to me violating the opportunity for me to be home. So I ended up going back into a juvenile detention center. And in that last juvenile detention center is when I had someone, her name is Anita Nungley, pour into me and say, you need to get your stuff straight. So I decided to focus and get my GED because I knew that coming back to school in the city school district was not going to be an option for me. So I got my GED. Fast forward, sometime later, I got a general office skills certificate. And then after that, I got my associate's degree. Now, this is where I will start to talk a little bit more. And even I have talked about this in a previous episode. Now that I'm talking about it, I remember, but I didn't really go into detail. So when I first decided to go for my associate's degree, it actually wasn't even my decision to go for my associate's degree. I had a job that I liked at the time. I was working for a financial company, was making decent money, and this was like the mid 90s. So I was okay back then, almost 30 years ago. And my husband at the time, felt that his wife, me, having a certificate in general office skills was not worthy, was not good enough for him and his colleagues and people that were in his circle. So he told me that I needed to go back to school so I can sound smarter whenever we went to parties, whenever we were at outings and we ran into someone. First of all, 30 years ago, we had newspapers, and we still do have newspapers now. However, they were more prevalent back then. I could read the current event sections if I needed to sound smart and keep up with what was going on around the world or even locally. But I thought about it and decided that at the end of the day, this was just going to make me better. So I enjoyed what I was doing. Back then I was an executive assistant, and I was like, well, I can just go back to school and I can get an associate's degree in this, because getting an associate's degree to be a secretary, receptionist, admin assistant, executive assistant was a thing. And I think it still is. Um, so that's what I did. I enrolled at Monroe Community College, and I want to say the degree was called office skills or office technology specialist. I don't remember the exact name, but it was something about office. And I was going to learn more in depth computer skills and typing and how to write letters and memos and things like that. All things that an admin does. He, my ex husband, found out what I was registered in, what program I registered in. And he was not very happy. Now, I'm the type of person that I just looked at the catalog because I don't like math. I literally looked no, hold on. I'm getting ahead of myself. So, general office skills is what I want. I mean, office technology is what I wanted. So, I looked at the program booklet and I saw, you take this class, you sign up for this class. You can't do this one unless you have this one as a prerequisite. So, you got to take this one first and then that one, and you just follow along. That's what I was doing. I followed along. I had a advisor assigned to me, but I never saw her because, again, I can just read the catalog and, you know, sign up for the classes that I needed to take. So I remember, I think it was my second semester, that my advisor sends me an email that she needs to speak to me. And I'm like, for what? I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's something that she has to check off, that she's seeing all of the students in on her course load. That was not it. She wanted to find out, why was I taking all these random classes that did not have to do with my degree. So I was a little confused. So I was like, what do you mean? This is what the program says. This is what I signed up for. She goes, that's not your program. Your program is business administration. You're a lie. What do you mean? No, it's not. Office technology, office skills, whatever the program was. She was like, no, you changed your major last month and it's business administration. No, ma'am. I have no desire in doing that. This is what I want to do. So some glitch must have happened, is what we both initially thought. So she switched it back and I was on course. Following semester, same conversation. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So this time we did a little bit more digging, and it turns out that my dear husband at the time, had a friend that worked in the registrar's office and had my program switched. So first of all, how illegal is that? all types of HIPAA violations and rights and all these things, just foolishness. So he and I have a conversation, and he's telling me that his wife is not going to have no degree to be a secretary, that that's stupid and blah, 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 and this and that. And that I needed to get a business administration because I'm going to learn and be surrounded by the right people. First of all, sir, that's your goal, not mine. I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I like what I'm doing. And I enjoyed all of my coworkers. They were all fabulous. So I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to switch it back and I'm going to get my degree in that. He's like, no, you're not. No, you're not. So, first of all, here's the thing about me. Don't tell me what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do because you're playing yourself. That's just not how I work. So, I decided to continue just following along. And there was something, I can't remember what it was. There was some, for some reason, I decided to actually switch my program. So I switched it to liberal arts. Now, this is where that oops came from before. What I decided to do was because I had all these random classes for office technology and things like that that weren't going to transfer into anything else. And I was like, okay, I just need a degree at this point. So I looked at all of the programs and selected the one that required the least amount of math because your girl is not a math genius. I don't like math. I don't like numbers. Not happening. So I ended up getting my associate's degree in liberal arts. That degree took me 8 years from my first class to my final class. It took 8 years because number one, I had gotten married during that time, had a second child, got divorced, ended up having a third child in a new relationship. That's when I switched it to liberal arts. Now that I'm thinking about it as I'm talking. And because I had taken some time off, and it was like, well, some time has passed. I was in a different job at this time, still front end, receptionist, secretary type of work. But I didn't want to, since I already had a certificate. And I'm like, what else am I going to learn? So I decided to switch to liberal arts. Now, fast forward, I got my associates in 2004. In 2011, yeah, 2011, 2012, that's when I got into HR. And my boss at the time, because I was negotiating my salary, because I was HR, so I knew what everybody made and knew how to, I wasn't in HR at the time. I was the executive assistant, so I still knew what everybody was making, and I was negotiating my salary because they wanted me to take over HR and create a whole HR department and things like that. So one of the things that I negotiated was getting my bachelor's degree because they, made that as a suggestion that I can learn more, especially about HR, if I went back to school. So I was like, if you help me, I will go back to school. So they actually paid for half of my program to go back and get my bachelor's degree. Now, two reasons why I decided to go for my bachelor's. One was because they were going to pay for half. And two, because again, I still had that belief that it was more education. And at the end of the day, it was going to be for my benefit, if nothing else. So I got my bachelor's degree in organizational management. Fast forward 2 years, I think it was. I decided that I wanted to go back for my master's degree. And the reason why I decided to go back for my master's degree, that was a personal goal. My associates was to shut my ex-husband up, even though by the time I graduated, we weren't even together. But I had started it and I wanted to finish it. So I got that for external reasons. My bachelor's was again for somebody else because it was a suggestion from my employer at the time, and they were helping me pay for it. So, again, external reasons. My master's, that was for me. And if you're watching the video, I'm pointing at my degree. That's the one right here. My bachelor's and my master's are over here, but that master's degree, front and center, that was for me. That was for little Maryann. And I am extremely proud of that. That is something that belongs to me. That is my greatest achievement. And don't get me wrong, it is a huge achievement from somebody who dropped out of high school in the ninth grade to getting her GED in juvie, to then getting a certificate, to then getting an associate's, to getting a bachelor's, and eventually my master's. I am hugely proud of that because, again, I did it for me. It wasn't for anybody else. It wasn't to prove anything to anybody else. It wasn't for a job. It wasn't for an employer. It wasn't for a spouse or a partner. It was for me. And when I walked that stage, I walked proud with my head high, my chest out, with the biggest smile. And it was truly amazing. So, what kept me motivated was the bigger picture, was the belief in myself, was knowing that where I have been in the past, the decisions that I had made because of who I was and what I knew at that point, the growth that I had done, the inner healing that has started to take place in my life. And I started becoming, by the time that I had received my master's degree, I was already in the coaching world. I had already started working on myself. And it was just a reminder of how far we can go and what we can accomplish when you turn your reflection inward, when you start working on yourself, when you focus on you, when you have the goals, the dreams, and desires for yourself, not to prove anybody else right or wrong, not to impress anybody else, but for you. So that is what kept me motivated. If doing the math, I ended up getting my bachelor's and my master's in 5 years, within 5 years, whereas it took me 8 years to get an associate's degree because I wasn't motivated back then. I wasn't motivated. I wasn't doing it for the right reasons. I finished for the right reasons, but it didn't start out for myself. And I do have an honorary doctorate, which I don't really talk about that often. I don't use it because since I'm talking about education, I'll just share a little bit about it. When I was approached for the honorary degree, for me, I feel like it was right at the beginning where then everybody started having honorary doctorate degrees. I did some research. Now, had I done a little bit more research, and had my healing been a little bit deeper, I would have said thank you, but no. Because number one, the honorary degree, including the degree fee, including the cap and gown, including the travel, the hotel, food that I had to pay for, it was probably about $4,000 or $5,000 that I invested in this degree. Now, here's the thing about honorary degree that some people may or may not know, and if they do know, they are ignoring it. Number one, you are not supposed to introduce yourself as doctor, whatever, 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 because it's honorary. You did not go to school for it, number one. Number two, in books, you are not supposed to use Dr. Maryann, for example, because again, you do not have an academic doctorate. Using the word doctor, the title doctor, on the front cover of a book, it's supposed to be for PhDs and doctoral people who have actually went to college and graduated from an accredited school, not honorary. Honorary doctorate degrees, you're not supposed to be using it for, again, in front of books. You're not supposed to be using it as a title like, oh, I'm Dr. Maryann. No, you're not supposed to do that. And you damn sure don't need to be making it that people need to call you doctor. I have had people that have introduced themselves as doctor when I know for a fact that they're not doctor. And I'm sorry, I'm going to call you by your name because you did not go to school for it. But that's a whole nother topic. And I have talked about this. There is an episode that I have talked about doctorate degrees. I will probably link that in the show notes. If you're curious, you can read it. Not read it. You can listen to it. But again, I have thought about going back to school for PhD, doctorate numerous times. But because again, I did not have the proper um, guidance when I first was in school getting my associate's degree. So I was maxing out my student loans and all of that. Once you get to like a doctorate level, student loans are almost invisible unless you still have credit that you have not used when you were getting your associate's, bachelor's, master's degree. So if I do decide to pursue an academic doctorate or PhD program, it's going to come out of your girl's pocket. And at this point in my life, it's like, why do I really need this? It's not going to enhance me any. Am I really going to learn anything? Because once you get to like a doctorate level, it's more again research and things like that. That's not something that I no longer want. Once upon a time, yes. Now here's the thing. If somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, we will give you a full scholarship and it's an accredited school that I'm actually going to be taking classes from actual professors," then I might think about it. We'll see. But, anyways, that's my spiel about education, higher education, what keeps me motivated, why did I go for my associates, bachelor's, and master's, what kept me motivated, what kept me going, because there were many days that I wanted to stop. And the thing that I will say that both my bachelor's and my master's program were adult programs, meaning that you had to be 25 and over and you had to have had associates. And for my master's, you had to have a bachelor's degree. They were accelerated programs, so it was a small group. In my bachelor's program, there were 13 of us, and my master's program, there were 8 of us. And I still keep in touch with one or two people from my bachelor's, and for my master's, I keep in touch with two of the girls. And so you do make friends with people and things like that. And it's basically, what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. I have great experiences. I wish that maybe there was the option for a doctorate PhD program. But for right now, that is not in the cards for me. It's not something that I feel I need to get. And yeah, so for the individual that suggested this, conversation, this topic, I hope that this has been helpful. You know where to find me, how to find me. So if you have more questions, I will be more than happy to have a one-on-one sit down with you and talk about that further. If you found this episode helpful, share it, send me a comment, share it with a friend or two who might be on their higher education path and wondering what they should do, what they shouldn't do. And feel free to send me any questions that you may have. I will be more than happy to answer them. And I'll see you here in 2 weeks with a brand new episode with some life and business updates. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the episode. See you back here on June 5th. And one last thing. This is a disclaimer. The information shared in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and it's not a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. I am not a licensed therapist or counselor. If you're dealing with mental health or emotional challenges, please seek support from a qualified professional or a licensed counselor. Have a beautiful day.